Hey YouTube. So I got some questions, or a question, to make a video about some of the things that I've made for the Woodmizer. And I didn't realize I made quite so many things, but oh, this is frozen here. But anyway, the first thing that I made was let's see, was the jigs to cut, or no, the first thing I made was the dog adapters. And the reason I made the dog adapters, and I'll show them to you here, is because the original ones that came with the Woodmizer looked like this. I'll show it to you here. The original adapters came like this. Now, what these are made for is to go over the Acme screw. There's nothing that holds it on, it just sits on. And then this cutout here, this dovetail type thing, would go against the bottom of a cant or the last 1-inch board. And what that would allow you to do is to cut, like let's say you had a 10-inch cant, 10 inches high or whatever, you could cut all 10 boards by just putting this against the very bottom and end up with a 1-inch board at the bottom. The problem with this thing is, and I had said this in a previous video, is that every time you took this off, this would fall down and you'd have to chase after it. So I didn't like that idea. But I do like the adapter. I think that adapter was neat, that whoever designed it had a good idea with the, you know, the part there that gives you that last 1-inch board. So I just took it a little bit further and I cut the dovetail in, flattened it out, made it a little bit smaller. This one here is a full 2 inches, mine's a little less than that. But I do have some 2-inch ones. It depends on the stock, the aluminum stock that I have in hand. I cut grooves in there to be able to hang on to the log. But I also drilled and tapped the Acme screw so that I could put a bolt in here. Now when you look across the face of this, I cannot see the head of the bolt, but I want this to still be able to move, okay? Because when you're making certain cuts, you do move up and down, especially for siding, and I'll show you that as I go. But anyway, that's the one thing that I made that is an add-on to the sawmill, and I make these and sell them. They're $45 for a set of 2, but you have to tap your own screw. If you want me to tap the screw for you and supply another screw with a handle on it, it's $115 for a set of them. That's a pair. So anyway, that was the first thing that I had designed and made, was this. I still hang on to these because you never know, but you know, if I ever sell the mill, naturally this stuff will go with it. I'm just saying. So anyway, that's the first thing that I had made there. So then, once I started cutting and I could see what the sawmill could actually do, the next thing I did then was I made a set of jigs. No, not this, I'll explain that later. But I made a set of jigs so that I could put these, slide these onto the Woodmizer, pull them against the stops, and turn this up and down. And all that does is it gives me, let me see what you're seeing here. Yeah, okay. It gives me the ability to cut bevel siding. Now, I don't know why some people think that if you cut the first bevel, you can just cut straight down. That's not true, because the board you're cutting is not on an angle. If the board was on an angle, you might be able to do that. You'd have to look at it. But what this does is you turn these up. You have to have a pair of them, one here and one down there. And what you do then, let me just back up here. What you do with this is you put a square cant on with this down. Now that's going to give you a level cut. So making a level cut out of a cant doesn't make any sense. So what you do is you turn this up, when these arms are facing that way on the both set that I have. Now this is my first set, so they're a little rougher compared to the new ones that I make. So you put this up, you turn the arm up, you make your first cut, you got bevel siding. Okay, that's the first thing. You have bevel siding. So then after you make a cut, you put them down, you go down whatever thickness siding you want, make another cut. And you got to do that back and forth, you know, making bevel siding. Now, if I was in the business of making bevel siding for a lot of production work, I would make this so that I could handle both things from one end. But for the way this is right now, this works fantastic for cutting siding. I have no problem with these whatsoever. And I like what they do. So that was the second thing I made, jigs to make bevel siding. Okay, and I also sell these. I think these are, I'm not sure, I think I sell, I won't even quote a price, but I do sell these. I make them and sell them. So let me put this away, and because I'm freezing out here. Okay, so then after I was cutting bevel siding, what I needed for my sawmill shed here, and that's what caused me to make this stuff, because I didn't want to buy the material, because I had material. I had all the wood I could find. So after I cut the siding, that bevel siding that you see on the shed there, then what I needed was to put a roof up, and I wanted to use the wooden white pine shingles. So here's what I did with that. I made an adapter. I want to just watch where I put this. And what this does, let me just see what you're seeing. This adapter here goes across, I usually use it up by where the saw is. But this adapter, it just makes one shingle at a time. If you're into something more, I don't need any advice from anybody on what I should do to make more shingles, okay? All I wanted was enough shingles to cover this little shed, and I'm just saying this works fine. All I do is tighten the thing down inside this and flop it one way over top of a little bolt that I have. So it takes a cant, an 8-inch cant, tilts it back and forth so that you're cutting a shingle with every pass. You know, you come down, you go back, you come down, it's a different shingle. It's one's thick, one's thin. Similar to the siding jig, but this cuts with the grain. Now you can try cutting shingles across the grain, but that doesn't work really well. You're better off cutting it with the grain for shingles. So that's what that's for. Okay, it's a simple jig. It's just I think it's 1.5 inch or 2 inch angle iron with a bolt across it, welded together to fit an 8-inch block of wood in there. It can be 8 by whatever, like it could be 8 by 16 if you want, but you know, it has to be 8 inches wide and 18 inches long. That's the size shingles that I was making. So I made that only to do the shingles, like I said, on the roof of the sawmill shed, because I didn't want to have to buy them. And it's not, don't think that I can't buy this stuff, because I can. That's how I bought the sawmill. What the problem here is I have the wood, I have the machine. Why not go old school and make it the way that they would have back then? So that's what I did when I made my sawmill shed. All I did was put the shingles on there, wooden shingles, wooden siding. I like the way it looks. It came out pretty nice as far as I'm concerned, and that's just, you know, for the ambiance of the old-fashioned sawmilling. That's all that's about. So that was the, let's see, 1, 2, that's the third thing that I made then. Okay, so then what happened was I got a, I want to put this away. I had gotten an order from a guy that wanted red oak boards, but he wanted them all cut. Hold on a second. Sorry guys, I had somebody pull in. Anyway, he wanted them cut quarter sawn. So quarter sawn, and if you look at one of my videos, I have a very good video in there that explains quarter sawn boards. Now there are a couple people that said that what I said wasn't true. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm sorry to say that, but quarter sawn boards are when you have a flat board, okay, and the rings from tip to tip, when you measure off the face, are no more than 60 degrees. They're from 60 to 90 degrees. That's quarter sawn. Rift sawn is 60 and back until you get to a point where they're slab sawn. But anyway, so I needed to be able to make as much quarter sawn boards as I could get out of every cut that I was making. So then what I did was I made these. I actually invented these, and I'm going to say the word invent. So what I have here is I needed to have with this particular thing, I needed to have something that was going to hold the jig down. But basically what I have here is this jig I bolted in, and I have a pin in there. Now this is my first set, so whatever scrap I had laying in my garage is what I built these from. But they're on a hinge, and you can cut, they cut from 15 degrees, 30 degrees, and 45 degrees. Okay, that's what that's for. Now that is according to the bunk or the saw blade. That's the angle you're getting that when you measure from the bunk or you measure from the saw blade. Alright, so 45 degrees here allows me to what I'm going to call radially cut a board out of the log. So what I do is I cut quarters of a log. I'll cut a log in half, and it don't necessarily have to be in half. I can cut it in half and then cut that in half and end up with pie-shaped pieces, put them on here, and then cut quarter sawn boards. I can cut all quarter sawn boards out of one log, no slab sawn anywhere. The problem with it is that the jig should be bigger and adjustable for different sizes of quarter sawn boards. This will work on a log that's probably up to, I'd say, 20 inches wide. The diameter of the log, but it works good. There's some math involved in this. You have to know where to set it and what the angle is that you're needing, because every time you make a cut, you're changing the angle on a quarter sawn cut. So these are quarter sawn jigs, and these work very well. They give me exactly what I need as far as the quarter sawn goes. It's just that they're a little small. You could use a bigger jig that would work better. Now the problem with this jig I had, but I solved it, was when you were cutting, the saw coming this direction had a tendency to pull the lumber or the log out of the jig. So what I did there, let me back up a little. What I did there was I have a bolt welded in here that's got a very sharp edge on it that digs into the log a little bit, or even to the board, to hold it in there. And that seems to work good, so I don't have to worry about the piece of wood jumping out of the jig because of the drag that the saw has when it's coming through the log. So anyway, that was the other thing that I made. And I have, the only thing I've ever done to the Woodmizer is drill a couple holes in it. One to hold the sawmill, or the siding, not the siding. One to hold the roofing shingle jig, and one to hold this quarter sawn jig. And like I say, they work good. Now a lot of guys, get goofy over when you start talking quarter sawn, because they say, this is the way to cut it, that's the way to cut it. Let me tell you something, it doesn't matter how you cut it, as long as it doesn't matter how you cut quarter sawn or how you cut rift sawn. What matters is that it falls within the guidelines of those angles that I told you. That's what matters. So you can cut it any way you want. I just know that this thing works for me. and it could use a little bit of improvement, but I'm happy with it as it is. Okay, now here is something else. This is another dog adapter. Now this dog adapter here is, instead of convex, this is a concave adapter. What I find this thing works good is on, I need this on the dogs when I'm cutting quarter sawn, because these will dig into the log and hold the log wherever I put it. And usually we're working on the lower side of the log. So in other words, you have a circle, okay? If you go to the middle of the circle, this will work. If you go to the bottom of the circle, these dig in better than what the other jigs or the other adapters do, because the other adapters seem to push themselves off the log, but this one digs in. So these work really good too. So I didn't drill these to be able to put a bolt in, because I don't use them that much. It's a quick sort of thing, but I could, and that would work good, because I wouldn't have to chase these. These you sort of got to chase every now and then. But like I say, it's not something that I couldn't fix really quick, but I just didn't, because when I use these, it's normally on something that will not let the dog roll up past the log. Sometimes if I have a great big log on here that's approaching 30 inches or so, I'll use something like this to hang on to it. It holds it better. Okay, so that's another thing. I'm going to put these things away. Just hang in there. Okay, then the last thing that I had made is this. Now, these are made for my particular sawmill. And all I do is I slip it over the 6x6. Let me see what you're seeing. I slip it over the 6x6, and it slips over top of the dog, and it holds itself there. So now what this is for, these are 5.5 inches above the dog. When you're cutting a very small board, like say 1x4s, or well 1x6 even, I'll say 1x6, because 1x4s you can usually dog them on the very bottom and cut a 1x4. But if you're cutting anything bigger than 1x6, which is what these are made for, I find that I can put boards on here and cut and get a lot nicer cuts from my flitches rather than trying to do it on these, because for some reason the board has a tendency to roll over onto these backstops that come with the sawmill. Okay, so I made these backstops so that I can just slip them on and off. Now here's the thing though, when I made the backstop and somebody saw the video, they really liked the idea of the backstop. Now let me just say this to you too. If you notice where my dogs are, there's no backstop there. The backstop is over here. Now you can take these dogs off. The bolts come out of these rods, and you could put them right here, and that sort of lines up the dog with where the backstop is. But it's not perfect, and it doesn't stay in the center. It all depends on what you're working with, what size boards. So again, I don't care how you do it. You can do it any way you want. Some guys just take 2x4s, lay them down, put their flitch against the 2x4, tighten it up and go. That's fine. But this works nicer for me. I like these. They're quick. I don't have to play games with them. I have two of them, one here, and then I would put one somewhere up in here, you know, up at the other end of the mill. And that works really nice for me to put flitches against, tighten the dog up against them, and it's just, I can just go. And I have them, like I say, so that I can cut a 1x6 without even worrying about hitting anything. I just put them on there, tighten boards, and I can cut a 6-inch off the bunk. And sometimes, depending upon how small I want to go, I cut 1x4s, and that's when I do use some 2x4s. I'll put a 2x4 block underneath, like lay one right here, and one up at the other end, and then I can cut 1x4. So, there's a million different ways you can do stuff. The problem with it is that not every way works with every single thing I have here. Now the dog adapters, they work with just about anything I've come up against. These work good as long as you're not cutting, you know, a lot of 1x4, unless you put a 2x4 down to be able to raise that up. So then, anyway, what happened was somebody had seen that I had made these, and they really liked them, and they asked me if I could make something for their mill. Well, because my mill rests on a 6x6, and the height of it off the 6x6 is a certain distance, and that distance is you know, it's what it ended up being level at. Not everybody's mill is like this. Everybody's mill is slightly different. So I couldn't make a set of these. So what I did was I made something different. I'll show that to you. So what I did then was I took this idea, okay, and what happens with these is these go around the 2x5. You push them against a little block. You want to pull loose, make sure the screw's loose. Tighten these up as tight as you can, and screw the thing tight. And that gives you a very sturdy backstop there to be able to dog against that. So that was the last thing that I made. Yeah, that was the last thing that I made so far. That works as a backstop. Now I'm considering making one of these that are adjustable for different heights, and I would make it different so that it was actually onto the side of the 2x5 angle. But I haven't done that yet. I haven't come across any of the jobs that I've done so far that would require me to be, you know, to have something adjustable like that. Because cutting flitches, let's face it, when you get a cant out of a log, especially logs that are like 24 inches and less, you're only talking about 8 boards at the most, okay, that you have to actually cut of flitches. So, you know, you're just taking 2 off of each corner or off of each side to be able to get your square cant, and that's about all that's left. So it's not a big deal unless you're the type, and it doesn't matter to me how you do it, but if you're the type of person that gets to the cant, don't worry about the flitches and just stack them somewhere and then come back after them later. That's up to you. What I like doing is I like staying cleaned up, so I take and cut the log, and then I try to cut the flitches. Unless I got a lot of logs staring me in the face, I'll just go ahead and cut the flitches right away. So that's basically how, you know, this goes. Now this is one I'm making. I'm not done with it. I got to grind it down and polish it up, and then this will be sent out. But they work nice. They fit on there good, so that's not a problem. Oh, and then the very last thing that I did was, for some reason, and I'm not sure why, if you noticed on the 2 backstops there, this backstop comes from Woodmizer, okay? And when you get the Woodmizer, there is one of these backstops that have a wheel on it. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3 came with the LT15, but I didn't understand why the other ones didn't have the wheels on them. So all I did was take some HDPE, and it's a variant, but all I did was take that and make plastic wheels. Okay, and what's good about the plastic wheels is if you're going to hit them, you're not going to wreck the teeth, and you should be able to recognize that you're going to hit them, you know, as you're cutting. So I put not just one there, but I put 2, 3. I put the other backstops. I added the wheels to that, and that's about it, I guess, as far as what I made specifically for the LT15. And like I say, if you want any of those things, I enjoy making them, and I enjoy putting them together, and the more I make, the better I get at it. So I'm just saying that's something that I do, or something that I've done in the past to make this better. And then actually I always get questions about the kiln. This kiln is from the Virginia Tech. The kids down there, I know one of the professors or two of them, I don't know for sure their names, but they deserve the credit, and I know they like that kind of thing. But I love this kiln. I like the way I built this for me. Now, having the back end of it open rather than the front would be good if you had a road to it. I did not want to cut any trees down behind this because I want the privacy back there. And if I cut roads to it, it's easy for somebody else to get to it as well as me. So, and inside here I've already dried a load of pine this past year. I dried a load of red oak, a load of white oak, and now I'm doing a variable of maple and cherry in here, and a little bit of red oak. And today the temperature outside is 10 degrees. It is 40 inside the kiln, and the moisture content's a little bit high in there today, but we've been having crappy weather, so that's all I can say. So guys, thanks for asking me about the different things. And I know that anybody who's been watching my channel for a while, you know what I've made because I've showed you all along the way. But even I can't find some of the videos I made from before, so I don't mind, making another one. It gives me something to have a subject for. So there you go. So that's what I do. As far as the carriage, a lot of guys don't like the way I work, and that's fine. Everybody has their own way. What I do is I put the log directly onto the bunk. I cut it, I throw the flitches over there, or I throw the scrap over on the table here. The good stuff I put behind me on a set of horses, and if there's flitches to be cut, I put them on the horses behind me, and then I take them after they're cut and put them right in the kiln. That stuff that's over here I'll cut up for firewood or kindling, and I have a bin there, not actually a bin, I forget what you call them things, but it's a wood cage. I put wire around it to keep this wood in, and what I do with this is I put all my kindling in there. So that's where I stand so far. And then this spring you can see that piece of well pipe there, and our gas pipe, and also my gosh darn crane is laying over here. I have it's not directly on the ground, although it looks it, but it's sitting on blocks. I want to put that wooden crane up here. I want this old-fashioned type of look when it comes to doing this stuff. So that's what I'll be doing come spring. And I also have loads of loads of logs coming, but they're not working on it yet, so I haven't gotten them. Anyway guys, that's it for today. Again, thanks for asking about this. If you want any of the things that I showed there, and I don't have a patent on this stuff, so if somebody wants to run out and do that, I just caution you that I do have videos from as far back as last year showing when I made this stuff, and it is open to the public, so whatever. And I'm not going to be chasing a patent. I just make the stuff for somebody who might need them. And once you know how to do this, you'll realize just how valuable some of the things are that I've made and how well they work. But again, it's up to the person. You can do it any way you want to. Have a good one, guys. Bye.